Okay, so in your notebooks, you guys all have a blank color wheel, and I want to talk you through how to understand the color wheel and also how to create it. How many of you guys had experience in the middle school with the color wheel? You should have some kind of starting point. Great, okay. So we're going to talk through that. If you know how to create a color wheel on your own, then you are totally set on this final exam. Because if you draw one for yourself, then you'll be able to answer a lot of questions that are on the exam. All right, so let's look at one together. This is a completed worksheet. This is what your worksheet is going to look like when you're done. But first, I'm going to enlarge this and just talk about some details on a color wheel. So, let's start from the beginning. On a color wheel, what are the three primary colors? Tina?
Cyan, yellow, and magenta.
Cyan, yellow, and magenta. Cyan is a blue. It looks kind of like turquoise, but we call it cyan. It's spelled C-Y-A-N. What are the primary colors? What's the definition of a primary color? Who wants to take a guess? Yeah, Kelly.
If you mix them, you get the secondary colors.
Okay, so I'm going to broaden that even more. The three primary colors, if you mix them together, you can make any color. Theoretically, you can make any color from the three primary colors. Based on color theory, the way that we have those colors and why we call them cyan, magenta, and yellow, okay, cyan, magenta, and yellow, the reason we call them that is because we understand color through light passing through a prism. It's a scientific thing. When light passes through a glass prism, have you guys done this in science yet?
Yeah.
Okay, it breaks down into the colors of a rainbow, different rays of light. All right? So, on this color wheel, what I want you to notice is that there are three large circles connected by a solid line telling us that those are the primary colors, right? So what I want to do right now, I'm just going to keep jumping back and forth. Up in the top corner of your worksheet, as a little practice for the final, I want you to draw a triangle. And it doesn't matter what order you put them in, but I'm just going to follow the color wheel in the PowerPoint. I want you to label that triangle with the three primary colors. Okay. Next, the secondary colors. What's the definition of a secondary color? Somebody help me out. What's the definition of a secondary color? We have cyan, magenta, and yellow. Zach?
Two primary colors mixed together.
Perfect. So the definition of a secondary color is when you mix two primary colors together, you get a secondary. So let's look at the color wheel again. On this color wheel, there is a dotted line. It's an upside down triangle. It's connecting the three secondary colors. And what you have to make sure you do on your color wheel, in between the two primaries, you have to put the secondary that those two primaries make. So, for example, in here, we know that yellow and magenta make orange. It has to be in the correct location. So whatever you decide on this first triangle determines everything else on your color wheel. I'll repeat that. Whatever you decide for this first triangle in terms of placement of the primaries will determine everything else on your color wheel. So let's do that together. For the secondary colors, I'm going to use a blue triangle. So, yellow and magenta make what? Orange. Yellow and cyan make, and cyan and magenta make violet, you can also call it purple, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to make a little key for us. Blue is secondary colors. Red is primary colors. We're all good, right? Okay. Let's talk about the third grouping of colors. On this color wheel, they're indicated by the smaller circles. Does anyone know what they're called? Tina. Tertiary colors. Tertiary is spelled, I can't write on that. T-E-R, tertiary colors. T-E-R, T-I-A-R-Y, tertiary. Who wants to take a guess based on how this is lined up? How do we create a tertiary color? Natalie, how do we create a tertiary color? What two types of color do we mix together? Correct. You create a tertiary color by mixing a primary and a secondary. And the color in between, obviously, has to be the combination of those two colors. Let's talk about the names of tertiary colors. Kathleen, you can see the board. What is the name of the tertiary?
Yellow-orange.
Okay, yellow-orange. So when you're labeling your tertiary colors, primary color name goes first, secondary color name goes second. It's just the combination of those two names. It's really simple. So, nope, wrong one. Sorry. So, when you're creating your little example for yourself on the top of your final, to remember, yellow, orange. What goes here? Yellow, green. What goes here? Cyan, green. What goes here? Cyan, violet. What goes here? Anyone besides Tina? What goes here? Tina, I appreciate you tremendously. It's really not that hard. If you can do this, you're golden. So, here's what's going to happen on the worksheets that you guys are doing. The first worksheet that you're creating is a color wheel. Let's start by identifying these shapes. So, on the color wheel, the hexagons are what category of shapes, Marcus? Primary. And John, the squares are what category of shapes? And you're going to label these down at the bottom, so if you're not doing that currently, please do that now. And these ovals, Cecilia, are what? Label it down at the bottom. They are your tertiary. Today, each of you will be given colored pencils that are the three primary colors. This color wheel was created with just those three colors. You're going to do that today. You're going to layer your colors to mix them so that you have this as a starting point, and then I'm going to ask you to label the colors. Questions? Okay.